Hey, we are live. Good evening, everybody. And I say good evening. Every time I say good evening, everybody, there's 0 people watching. So, I don't know. Let's wait and see if anybody comes along. Are you sharing it? Are you sharing like video?
I'm going to share it out now.
Excellent. We've got one person watching now. So, good evening to that one and only viewer that we've got out there at the moment. If you'd like to say hi, just put it down in the column there in the column, and then we'll know if you can see and hear us all right. So hello to you. If you can reciprocate. Oh, there's 2. That's brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. Right. So this evening, first of all, I'm going to start with tonight. It's me, Viv, and Jamie, and I want to ask you guys. Hi, you Annette. I want to ask your what's that feedback? Viv, have you got feedback playing?
No.
Oh, okay. Doesn't matter. So, how's the week been, guys? How's the week been?
Busy.
Good. That's good,
Really
don't
busy.
it? Keeps you out of trouble. As
It does, yeah. So I've done.
Your old mum and dad used to say years ago.
Yeah, I've done 12
so you've had
hours.
a busy week, and you've been doing night shifts and stuff, and you're late. So you're
night shifts. 12 hours.
But at
7 days.
At least it's kept you out of trouble, though, isn't it? Which is good.
Yeah, mate.
So that's good. That's good. Oh, hi, you Jeremy. I hope you're doing well. Hi,
Hi,
bud.
Jeremy. Oh.
And we got one from Annette there. Thank you, Annette, and from Claire.
Oh.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Claire.
But it all good. That's brilliant. So, how's your week gone, Viv?
It's been a busy one. Yesterday was quite sad, as it was for everyone.
Excellent, Jeremy. Yes, it was hard to get through yesterday, wasn't it?
It was. And the weekend was busy. I had a ride in a helicopter on Saturday.
I
I'm well jealous.
I was in York. Not York. Where was I? Oxford.
Very nice.
I was in the oldie moldy city of Oxford on Saturday.
Oh, it's beautiful there.
Found some lovely places to go investigating. So, just watch this space to see what happens. Because I'm sure me and Dan will be sorting things out.
Not by helicopter, though.
No.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you. But yeah, it looked really cool, the helicopter ride you had. It was really fun. Very James Bondish.
I was Mrs. Bond for the day.
Brooke Bond, wasn't it?
Brooke Bond tea bag. That's me. A Brooke Bond tea bag.
Good evening, Von. I hope you're doing well.
Good evening, Von.
Hope you're doing well there, Von. So this evening we thought we'd have a little bit of a relaxed evening, and we just have to chat about. We were going to talk about horror icons, weren't we? So, sorry, I'm just looking up. I'm checking to see what the kids are doing at the back gate or up to something. I've got to be careful with my kids. They can fire petrol bomb in the car or anything. So, it was emotional, Claire. It was very emotional. Yes. What was that, Claire? Sorry, what did Claire say, Viv? I didn't read it all. It was too quick. Yes, yeah, it was heartbreaking. Yes, I was even today. I watched it back again today, like the final bits of it, and it was very emotive, very emotional.
I must say, for me, the emotional part was when Charles lost it right at the very end.
He looks a shattered man, doesn't he?
He was fighting back the tears. And for me, like that poor man losing his mum like that and not being able to grieve fully.
He isn't really grave about his dad, is he, really, to be fair?
No, his dad was not even a year, is it, between them? He's lost the parent from one on top of the other, isn't he? I know, people say, well, lots of people do that, and I've lost both my parents. But, you've got to look at it from each individual's perspective, haven't you? He's lost his mum and dad. Yeah. Whether he's King of England or not, it's still a pill to swallow, isn't it? But, yeah, I'm getting feedback on this, Viv.
It's not me. Have you got a microphone? Microphone?
No. Don't know what's going on there.
Are you hearing yourself?
I'm hearing myself and others. I don't know what's. No, it's all right now. Seems to be. Yes, the bit where they took the things off the coffin was very particularly potent and sad. It really was. Thanks, Claire. Yeah, absolutely. So Claire's picked up on that.
Claire, who's giving the feedback? Who's getting the feedback when they talk?
Not me.
No, it's, mine seems okay.
Is it me?
Probably Vivian.
Might be
I
Viv.
like the way they go. Probably Vivian.
He was very. I'll tell you what, Jamie was very polite there. I was going to say it was definitely Vivian.
It's going to get a smack on Saturday.
Oh, there you go. I was back again.
Stop.
No idea.
Hello?
That.
Really
Is it
weird.
me?
No, it's Daniel. I think.
Is it me?
Mm.
I've got nothing. There's nothing on.
I don't know.
I can't hear any feedback from Dan.
No, I don't know. It just comes in and out, didn't it?
Oh, do you know? We'll work with it.
It'll be all right.
See how it goes. So,
I blame Lois. I blame Lois.
Oh,
I do, yeah.
yeah, she's in there. She's what do they call it? The what is it? The gremlin in the works.
Oh, talking about
She's
gremlins, I pressed on something on my phone.
One of your horror icons.
I can't bloody get rid of it. I don't even know what it is.
What is it?
I have no idea.
Is it a Pong channel?
Yeah, probably.
Oh no! It's not Vaunted High Lois. I'll tell you what. I think Lois is at university today, isn't she, Viv?
I don't know if she's in the chat.
Oh no, Vaunted High Lois. I was looking for Lois, but I can't see her.
Probably.
But yeah.
Oh, Claire says, does
Yes.
one of you have a speaker on? I think it's the microphone picking up the speaker.
I have no microphone on.
I'm plugged in.
Ooh,
I have no speaker.
I'm hands free.
It's Jay then.
Probably me.
We'll blame Jay. We'll blame him for everything else.
we'll work with it. We'll get round it.
Can
So,
I just want to say before we start, Paul's show Mysterious Worlds is not on tonight because on the Simply Spooky channel because he's taking a break from working the Queen's funeral. So while the cat's away, we thought we'd come and play and stream to Simply Spooky as well, just to fill in his.
we're
time slot.
everywhere.
So, yeah,
We're like we get everywhere.
we're a rash.
We are, and there's no cream that's going to help.
No, Jamie spread it. Jay, she said it's the hands-free. Try turning the volume down
There
a
you go.
tad, Jay.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah.
See, Claire knew it was your fault,
Yeah.
Jay.
She knows me then.
She's very diplomatic, is Claire, though, because she didn't point any fingers, but she said it without actually.
She said me, didn't she? Yeah.
She feels for us, Dan.
She does. She knows what we've got to work with.
You wait until Saturday.
Oh, God, all we need is Lois to come down. Oh, God.
We miss
there.
those.
We were going to talk about horror icons, weren't we? Have you got any particular horror icons even, that you guys particularly favour?
No,
I
because
do.
I never used to watch them when I was a kid.
Did you not? Now, that's all I used to watch as a kid.
No, I used to. If I watched one, then it would scare the Jesus out of me, and no, I wouldn't. And then I'll go to bed, and it would just play on my mind.
Do you know what? I was a very weird kid because I used to. My mum and dad would allow me. I don't know if parents would do it now. When you look at the horror that I used to look at as a kid, it's really mild, but it was stuff like Hammer House of Horror, and stuff like that. So it was kind of cleverly written, some of it, but the acting wasn't of the best standard, and the effects.
I think I watched the Stephen King the original, and that just
That threw you. Also,
Yeah,
used to
threw me
watch a
out,
lot of the
yeah.
old American stuff from the 30s, like Frankenstein Lives or Bride of
Yeah.
Frankenstein and Dracula and all that type of stuff.
Mm.
Because I used to love that. You sort of, that was the sort of thing I was. And I even remember I used to sit, this weird boy, I'd sit in front of the telly, and there used to be an
Hi,
ice
Nick.
cream.
Hi, Nick.
Hiya, Nick. There used to be like an ice cream. Viv, you'll remember it. Or maybe you won't. Maybe it's before your time even. But it was it was called a Dracula lolly. It was black on the outside and red on the in. And you used to get a card.
It
And I
was
used to
jelly
collect
in the
the
middle.
Dracula- That was it, jelly in the middle. And I used to get the Dracula cards with it. So I used to collect these little playing cards that were Dracula cards, and it had all the information about the actors and stuff on the back and all about the characters. And I also used to collect.
Dan, how much would those be worth if you still had them now?
Oh, I'd imagine a lot of money. A lot
Or
of
like
money.
£2 each, wouldn't they?
They were probably less than that, or about 5 pence. They were 13. What was it? 2 and 6 each. They were. They were, I think, about 5 pence each. I think they were. But I used to also collect the Hammer House of Horror cards. Used to have those. So I used to collect those as well. And I used to sit there on a Saturday and watch my Hammer House of Horror or watch my Frankenstein and Dracula from America in the 30s. And I'd sit there and I'd be obsessed with it. Just absolutely obsessed with it. And then I grew up a very strange individual. And I think that's probably got, in no small part due to that, I would imagine. Good evening, Gavin. I hope you're well.
Yes. Hi, Gavin. So tonight we're talking about horror icons. And I must say, Dan, I started my horror journey with Universal Pictures horror evening.
Yeah.
And from that, I fell in love, and I mean fell in love with a guy called, what is his name? Boris Karloff.
Now,
this Boris Karloff, not only did he's famous for Frankenstein, but he also did other little weird horror stories.
Mad Scientist and things he did, didn't he?
But this guy, Boris Karloff, who was so big and made it over in the States, is actually a British actor that come from Kensington.
He's an Enfield lad, Viv.
Yeah, that.
He was an Enfield lad because I went to the same school as him.
So this
George
horror
Spicer.
icon, this horror icon, is flying the flag for Britain. I might add. And then as I grew older, I moved on to what you said, the armchair thriller, Hammer House of Horror things. And the next guy that I fell in love with was Christopher Lee.
Love Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee, to me, is Dracula. There is no other Dracula other than Christopher Lee. Not only did he play the part very well, but he made it his thing where he was always Dracula. He was known for being Dracula, and he acted, even in his not like everyday life, like he was like a Dracula. He was such a good actor. He made it into the Bond films and some of the big blockbusters. One he didn't finish. He died in between filming. But for Christopher Lee, and not a lot of people know this, but he was also heavily into his music. And before he died at the grand old age of, I think it was 86 when he passed away.
Yeah, he was getting up there, wasn't he?
Yeah. Christopher Lee teamed together with a band called Man of War. And he did some music with that band, Man of War, quite a popular band. And he joined them and he recorded some tracks. He also used to read poetry. He used to love Edgar Allan Poe and all things dark and mysterious. But this man, Christopher Lee, for me, and Boris Karloff are my two. I have a third, but he's not as up there like these two. But they're my all-time horror icons. My next one, I'll just move it quickly, is Oliver Reed.
Great in the werewolf.
The werewolf, because
Oliver Reed. He was in Oliver, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He Bill Sykes.
Bill Sykes.
Bill Sykes, great actor.
He was also known for his drunken antics.
Yeah, he liked to drink, didn't he?
He did like a drink. I mean, he was a fantastic actor. And apparently, the stories go that when he was working, he was sober. The minute the camera stopped rolling, straight on the drink. And he got so pissed. He was a disgrace, really. But to me, that makes him a normal human being.
I loved him.
He came to our local village where I live, and he stayed in the local B&B, which was a pub, drank the pub dry, that they had to, because he was demanding more drinks for himself and his entourage, that they had to run round the open off license nearby in the next village and buy all this booze back in just to cater for Oliver Reed. That I respect that man. I did go to Malta, where he was filming Gladiator, nothing to do with horror, and saw the spot where he dropped down dead. And I saw his very, very last beer tab. They've got it framed on the wall inside the pub.
Blimey, have I got a big enough frame?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, you know, from the past, those three are my horror icons. The films that they were in, the black and white films, right the way through to the colour films that they did later on in life. Those three, not so much the characters, but the actors themselves.
I think you got to think as well along the lines of people like Vincent Price.
For me, he didn't do it for me.
I loved Vincent Price. You know, Bela Lugosi. You know, I'm trying to think of the name of the guy. Who's the guy with 1,000 Faces?
Lon Chaney.
Lon Chaney, and he did a movie, didn't he, called London by Night? And there's no copies of that, but the idea that's attributed to that is if you see that, you will go mad.
Really? Should we try? We need to try and see it.
There's a copy of it out there, but nobody knows where it is. But the thing is, I mean, I used to love the way in the 30s that they used to, and it was very, very sinister, the way that they would hone in on their eyes, and there'd be dark shadows around. The eyes would be gleaming and almost hypnotic, and I used to love that.
Didn't they do that with? They started that with the very first vampire film with Nosferatu that had no speaking in it at all.
No, great film. Great.
I've never seen it all the way through because
It's a cracking film.
I turn it on and I think, because Andy put it on and he says, "Oh, watch this. It's really scary. Come sit next to me." It was like, get out of it. You know, sit and watch it. And I watched it and I could not get into it. I was like getting in the kitchen, making a cup of tea, fiddling about, you know, because I just...
The guy was a proper German baron, wasn't he, or something? Like the guy who was in the film. And he was proper sinister. They did a film about him and they said, like, they were never quite sure what his angle was because he was very, very odd.
Oh, look at this. Oh, I don't know if you can see it behind us. We have the hands of Nosferatu standing on the ship.
Nosferatu.
And who's that?
He's like a Dracula.
Yeah, he's like your original, wasn't he?
But he's bald.
Right.
I think the creepy thing about him is where you see the vampire and they get out of the coffin, he didn't get out of the coffin, he kind of elevated straight up. So it just comes straight up. Those black and white movies, them silent movies, some of them are bloody terrifying. Because obviously they used to have, all they could work with was lights. So light spoke 1,000 words.
That film turned 100 years
old. Did it really, Nick?
Wow.
That is phenomenal. Count Orlok. That's it. Count Orlok. But I'll tell you what, fantastic. But there was, but I mean, things like his body was brought back, wasn't it, Boris Karloff, over here, and he got cremated. I think it was at Golders Green. He was cremated, and his ashes were put there somewhere. But the thing about Boris Karloff, I've always got a connection with him because obviously, as I say, I went to the same school as him.
Yeah.
He came from Enfield, so there was a lot of stuff going on around him. Obviously, you kids, you don't realise that, but as you get older, you read into it and you pick the information up.
Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Jacqueline. But I do love Vincent Price. I think Vincent Price
he did a lot as well, Vincent Price. I mean, he did the pop stuff. I mean, he does famous stuff with Michael Jackson.
He did Thriller, didn't he? He did the voice for the voiceovers for Thriller.
Oh, is that who it was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And he was, what do you call it? He was a fanatic for what do they call them? Roller coasters.
Was he?
Travelled the world just riding roller coasters. It was his absolute #1 hobby.
Didn't he? He did. What was I going to say? He was also depicted, and his voice was in the film Edward Scissorhands after his death, wasn't it?
Yes. They used his voice. He's very. I loved his voice. But talking about Christopher Lee, he left, and he had the biggest ever collection of occult books.
Did he?
Some real expensive one-offs. Some of them were priceless.
Don't tell Zach Bagans because he'll try and get his hands on. No.
because everybody tried to talk to him about his collection of occult books, and they could never get him on the subject. But eventually, I think it was coming to near the end of his life, and he kind of opened up. He said, "Yeah, he's got a phenomenal collection he had." It was
His daughter would
ever.
have all that now, wouldn't she? She'd have all of that now.
Yeah. I guess she would have it now, wouldn't she? I don't even know how she must be getting on herself now, though, mustn't she?
I don't know.
You know,
I will. While we're talking about the really old black and white films, I will bring up the very first zombie film I ever watched. Was called White Zombie.
White Zombie.
White Zombie.
Zombie.
It was so cheesy and just with a blonde woman screaming all the time, and it wasn't even scary. But it did bother me, that film. It really did. It gave me nightmares, that film, White Zombie, as a kid.
What do you think of zombie films now, though? I get really bored with them.
Well,
it's the same.
I saw a zombie film recently, and these zombies actually run very fast.
That's different.
And I couldn't get my head around that. They were running really, really fast. It's like zombies don't actually run, do that? And it's like, in this zombie film, they'll run really fast if they catch you dead man, and you watch it.
Now, that's quite terrifying, isn't it?
I actually hated it. And I'm not into the zombie films, though I do like The Walking Dead.
But that had lots of different stories interrelated, didn't it, and crossing each other, which was interesting. And that really wasn't even about the zombies in the end, was it? It was about the social interaction between different people in an apocalyptic age, really, I guess.
And I think didn't they have zombies? I mean, I forced myself to go to sleep in the cinema because I was that scared. And I've done it twice. And it was The Evil Dead. And didn't that have zombies in it?
That was, what's his name? Nickel the guy.
They banned that film.
Was that the comedy one?
No, the real, I mean, now I watch it and laugh at it, thinking, well, I don't know what I was scared of. But in the cinema, on the big screen, and bad stuff was happening, I couldn't watch it. I had to close my eyes and go. I forced myself to go to sleep. I couldn't watch it.
I used to like the comedy ones. That was I can't think of. Yeah, George A. Romero. Yeah.
Bruce Campbell is that name you're thinking of, Dan?
That's it, Bruce Campbell. Thank you, Nick. Absolutely, yeah. I love Bruce Campbell. He's put a lot of weight on now, and he's let himself go to seed a bit, but it's the funniest films I've ever seen. They're just brilliant films, comedies. I don't know if they were meant to start out as comedies or not, but they just ended up comedies. They're just brilliant.
But didn't it at that time, that particular film, Evil Dead, it did get banned, didn't it, for a while, and then it came out on video.
That was one of the was that one of the first ones or one of the early ones, 60s?
Wasn't that one of the evil, like the video nasties that were banned and you couldn't get it anywhere?
They banned a lot in the 80s, didn't they? There's a lot of them you couldn't get in the 80s.
Do you know what?
You couldn't get the uncut Texas. I remember I was only a kid and my brother went, look what I've got. And I went, what? He went, I've got. And they banned it, the uncut version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. I was about 9.
Yeah.
Right? By the time I finished it, my mum's gone, what have you done to Danny? You know, he went, what is it? She said he can't close his mouth. He's terrified. And he went, what? He went, I haven't done anything. She went, what have you been watching? Nothing. And then she found it, the uncut version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Do you know, that's what we did that. Listen to this, Dan and Jay. We got our hands on the copy of the uncut video cassette of I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And we sat there watching it. Yeah, we didn't realise what we were watching.
McDonald's.
Is it a 10-minute rape scene before it even started?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, because this woman goes mad and then she has to kill everyone and get revenge. But it was like 10 minutes of her being absolutely appallingly being raped. Oh. And it was like, I understand now why they would ban this and take it off the shelves. But today, I suppose in today's day and age, people wouldn't think about it. You know, they wouldn't blink. But
even common bit of decency, you wouldn't want to watch that, would you?
No, I mean, if I saw that in the cinema now, 10 minutes of somebody going through that,
you'd walk straight out, wouldn't you?
I'd walk out. I would walk out.
I mean, I'm no prude or anything, but I mean, bloody hell, there's got to be a line there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
God,
Nick,
I
we'd love to do that.
Nick, do you want to come on? Hang on. Let me message Nick. You chat amongst yourselves about video nasties.
Well,
But yeah.
I don't know, really. It's your era, you and Dan Zero, isn't it, to be fair?
You must have watched video nasties.
You must have said, mind you, they weren't nasties in these days, were they?
No, not really.
They probably just, they didn't care what they show now, do they? They'll show
I think-
everything.
What about Hellraiser?
Oh, that was great.
Right.
That was a great set of
Right.
films.
Hellraiser is quite a bad film.
Do you know what I agree, Robert?
So we had all like
Jaws
Candyman and
Jaws
stuff.
was terrifying. Jaws was absolutely terrifying film.
So we had Candyman and stuff like that
Oh, do you want to laugh?
Candyman was brilliant.
when we were
Dan.
growing up.
Brilliant.
Dan, we went in TK Maxx in Oxford, and they had in the woman's section a long coat with black, shiny black, with the brown fluff around it in squares, just like Candyman's coat.
Really?
I was going to put it on and take photos, but
You
I
should have
thought,
bought it.
I would never get away with it in the shop. They'd kick me out. Oh, dear.
Candyman, yeah, Candyman was great.
Do you know what? Hellraiser, Annette brought up Hellraiser. Now, I went to the pictures on a first date with this gentleman, and he said, "Oh, it's a lovely film." I said, "It's not scary horror, is it? Because I don't do horrors on the big screen." He said, No. Got us in. He said, I looked at Pinhead and I thought, "Oh, that looks really bad." He went, No. He said, "That's just a character and it's not scary." Anyway, that was the second film that I forced myself to go to sleep because I couldn't handle it. And after it came out on DVD, people bought me the film and I was forced to sit and watch it. And I had nightmares for months over that. And I even thought I saw the shadow and an outline of a man's head with pins sticking in it. It was just making my mind.
Oh, is that
you
the
know.
pin? Yeah, I've seen,
Right.
yeah.
So I used to have absolute nightmares. Then this Comic-Con, HorrorCon came to town and they bought tickets and they said, "Oh, bring your box of, your DVD." And I had a big poster somebody bought me for Christmas. They said, "Stick that up on your bedroom. It'll sort your nightmares out."
Hello, Adam. Sorry.
So,
Adam, there's 40 goals in there.
so anyway, I bought this box, the DVD, and I queued up, and right in front of me was Doug Bradley. They put me in this queue. Just stay in this queue. Don't go
That's the
anywhere.
lad that does it.
Got to the front of the queue and Doug Bradley is sitting there in front of me, and I glared at him. I said, "Excuse the French here, guys."
Where's your pins gone?
I said, "You bastard." I said, "I had 6 months of no sleep, night terrors. You wouldn't believe what I went through, and all my friends took the mickey out of me, and it's all your fault." And do you know what the man did? He got up from around his table. He walked all the way around,
Gave you a
came
hug.
to the front and gave me the biggest hug. And he said, "If you're telling me this," he said, "I know I've done my job well."
Yeah.
He said, "Thank you." And he took my box of DVDs, which
Who
was
Mrs.?
and he signed it. And he gave me kisses as well. And I said, "Oh, God, I'm going to have to pay for this now. How much have I got to pay you?" He said, "You get that for free." He said, "And stay there because I want to talk to you when this queue goes down a bit." He spent a good 20 minutes with me. Absolutely wonderful man, brilliant actor. And now I can watch Hellraiser. I'm not scared
Not
at all.
bothered because you know
No.
the terribly actor.
Because you know the lad who did it.
Yeah. Oh, guess
No,
what, guys?
Way!
Hello.
Chantel in the room, Chantel in the
Chantel in
room.
the house.
Chantel in the room. Hello, Chantel.
Jamie, how are you going to greet Chantel?
Hello, Kelly.
I'll just get
Hope
with
you're
the
doing
kiss.
well. Kelly, where have you just come back from on holiday? Somewhere nice, I should think.
Oh,
I bet it
yes.
was Disney. Was it Disney, Kelly?
She's been to Blackpool.
Oh, was she? Oh, Blackpool's cool. Blackpool's
Yeah.
cool.
Blackpool's nice.
Yeah, Blackpool's cool.
Nick, check your Facebook Messenger. I've sent you a link. Mr. Muley.
Then obviously we had Jaws and stuff.
Where's
We
he
had
got?
Jaws
Oh,
and
Charles
stuff.
got hold of him. Jaws was a cracking film in the day. Jaws.
So we had Jaws and
Right.
stuff. So yeah,
That was
there's-
terrifying.
Hands up, everyone who was scared to put their bottom on the toilet and have a wee after watching Jaws.
no.
No, I was all right with that, but I was frightened of going up into the sea.
Yeah, so was I.
Even though we don't get those type of sharks over here.
No.
Botty sharks.
Spotty sharks.
We could make a horror film ourselves. We got warped minds.
I've not seen a really good horror film for. I mean, they're all they turned into sort of slasher movies, didn't they? The old original sort of horror is not kind of with us anymore, is it?
And
You
then
know,
you
I
had
must
the
admit,
car.
I do like the Mummy film. I mean, they're probably 90s now, aren't they? Late sort of 2000s, but I like the Mummy films. They're quite cool.
Mm.
What would you want from a horror film today, though, Dan? I mean, what is it that you're looking for?
It'd have to be ghosts.
Yeah.
Me. It'd have to be ghosts, and it would have to be sort of some sort of twist. You know, are you falling asleep, Jay?
No, I dropped my phone.
It would have to be. I always thought I would like to see a film where you got ghost hunters. Just to give you a scenario, ghost hunters they get called out to do an investigation. So they go out this. There's no connection with the people that have got this property. So they go into this property and they set up. They do this investigation, and then what they've got is they've got a connection with the spirits from the 1800s, say, just for example. But the spirits from the 1800s, it turns out that the modern day ghost hunters are the ones that are ghosts, and the spirits from the 1800s are connecting with them through a time. But it's just something weird off the wall, you know.
There's something similar to that on Netflix, isn't there? Where a man goes ghost hunting and he encounters them.
No idea.
Yeah,
But they've got this connection.
midnight.
What?
Straight at midnight.
Yeah.
Strike at midnight. No, that's more like a comedy, not a ghost, not a horror.
I don't know, just something like that, something weird like that, where the ghosts are the people that are actually the ghost hunters, where, you know, they've died in there a long time ago, and the spirits they're communicating with aren't spirits. They're still alive in their time, but they're connecting through. Just weird.
Chantel
Stuff.
says, I want just for once for the person not to run up the stairs or trip in the woods while running away. Do you know what I would like to see, Chantel? Right, so I don't know. Let's take Jason Voorhees, for example, Friday the 13th. So he's there with his knife and he's running after people. They're screaming and running away. I'd like for one person just to stand their ground, knock the knife out of his hand, lift his mask off, and just punch him straight in the face. Have that, yeah.
Well, then it wouldn't be a
Maybe
film.
you know what? Maybe they've
It'd
done
be funny.
everything. Maybe everything's been done. Maybe they've done everything. I'm sure there's other angles, but maybe they've got to the point where they've run out of ideas.
Do you know there was a horror film and it had only one disgusting part in it because it wasn't really horror. It was more sci-fi horror. And it was called The Thing.
God, that's old, isn't it?
And
Thing. I've heard of that.
The Thing is based in Iceland somewhere, I don't know, out in the Arctic, and it's an alien thing that lands and does stuff to dogs, and yeah. So The Thing I thought was quite interesting because it had a different slant, which has been mimicked by Aliens, by lots of other horror films that have taken bits from The Thing and add it to their films. But I think it was one of the first trendsetters back. I think The Thing is the 70s, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's old, isn't it? It's an old movie now. What was the other one? You had the that was where it was the Stone Tape Theory. The idea of the Stone Tape Theory came from a film that was made about 1970, which was called the Stone Tape Theory, and that was one of where the first roughly ideas came about a bit like energy and memories being absorbed into the materials of an environment. So that was a good film. But
There's lots
I
of
don't know.
good films being mentioned in the chat at the minute. I mean, they're all coming in thick and fast. But do you know what was
going to be The Creeps?
you know-
Thing that came to yeah.
Dan? Do you know what was another good film? Now, Jamie wouldn't know about this one, but I'm sure you would. It was called Scanners.
Oh God, that's 80s, wasn't it? That was cracking film. That was.
So
I was
Jamie,
born 84.
So if we could blow your head up just by thinking about it, and make
Yeah,
you
that was a
like this,
cracking
and then
film.
your head would
I
explode.
just go
That was
to
a
I just
cracking
go to
film,
work for
Scout.
that. You're all right.
What was the one with the wrestler in it? The guy, he passed away recently. Well, maybe the last few years. But he did a film where he had these glasses. And when he put these glasses on, he could see the aliens. And it was like, Obey. I can't think of the film. Was it Roddy Piper? I think it might have been Roddy Piper. I think it was.
He was a wrestler, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he was in this film. He was in this film, Roddy Piper, where he put these like sunglasses on, and then it could show you, and all the signboards that were advertising on the TVs and that, it was aliens, and they were brainwashing people, and it was significant because it was kind of not only was it a horror film about aliens taking over the planet, but it was also about how people are getting manipulated by advertisements and the local press, and
yeah.
see people, and they'd look at him and he'd look at them if they once he had his glasses on, they know that he could see him because the way that he was looking at them with the glasses on. Cracking film.
So I have a question to ask both of you guys, right? American horror films as opposed to British made horror films, which ones do you prefer? Because we have both sides.
They're very different, aren't they? I think.
Yep.
I think the thing with the American ones is that they're a lot of them now are sort of slasher, and they've gone down that serial killer route, and with a little bit of a supernatural twist to it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, you get a ghost story, or you'll get a movie about spirits or whatever, and it's generally thought's gone into it, and it's not. I mean, there's room for both, isn't there? They're both equally as good in their own rights, but they're just different. I think they're just very different ways of making them.
What do you think, Parker?
Well, like Paranormal, what was it, Activity, wasn't it? Americans did.
Yeah.
I just think that it was. I think if the British made it, I think it'll be done a lot different.
Better,
yeah. It'll tell. It's not like.
I think they should have just left that with the first one.
Yeah, I did because it just. I don't know really, but I think if the British
after
made
that,
it, then I think it'd be a lot better. It wouldn't beat it around the bush kind of thing.
Yeah, but that film, Paranormal Activity, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Thank you, Annette. They live. Thank you. Sorry.
That paves the way for what a lot of paranormal teens actually do today on their live feeds.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, and with Facebook moving on the way that it did, so people go live on Facebook, they take you on their ghost hunt with them.
Yeah.
So I think that paid away, and it also affected people's minds in the way that they thought this was the way to ghost hunt.
Yeah.
And
sorry, Jay, go on.
No, go on, mate. No, you're right.
No, I was just going to say, I think because the thing as well with the American ones, it's all gone down the demon route. And if you look at the way that the ghost hunters out there, people that actually do the ghost hunting out there, they're following the same suit. Everything's demonic.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, man, you can't just put everything down to that. There's more to it than that. I don't know about demons. The jury's still out for me. As I've always said before, a demon is something that's very negative. It could be a person.
I'm going to bring it back to the films now, horror icons. Your best demon films?
Demon or devil?
Both, either or.
Don't know.
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist,
and I really liked Poltergeist.
Yeah.
See, for me, it was The Omen, because that little boy,
was
the actor that played that little boy, he had that face you just want to smack him.
The Omen was cracking.
He had that face.
He had a face like a smug, wasn't he? Like a smug. The Omen was cracking. Great film, great movie. But I like The Exorcist, and I like. There's quite a few I've liked, really. But yeah, I mean, they've all got their own merits, haven't they? There's some good stuff going. There's some good stuff But the 70s, it seems to have gone downhill after the 70s and 80s, didn't it? All the 80s started with all the. Sorry, Viv.
Nobody was writing any more sort of decent
films.
I mean, because you had the serial killer thing like Ed Gein. So you had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and
Yeah.
others that came out from that. And I think especially now, because they haven't got material to work from, original material that's good, they're remaking old films again.
Yeah.
Now, love him or hate him, Rob Zombie has just done a remake
Oh, Rob Zombie, brilliant.
of. He's just done a remake of The Munsters.
Oh,
So I'm actually looking forward to seeing that. I mean, The Munsters wasn't really horror as such.
it was comedy, wasn't it? Like
Yeah.
general comedy, wasn't it?
They used
It
to be
was
great. They
comedy.
used to be on
Oh, I
Channel
used to
4
love the monsters.
on a Sunday.
But I
The
can
original
see
ones from the 50s, 60s, brilliant.
I can see Rob Zombie taking that comedy and turning it, twisting it on its head and turning it into a horror. Can you?
Yeah, Rob Zombie's brilliant. Rob Zombie's brilliant. He's absolutely superb.
He's quite sick. I mean, if you've watched A House of a Thousand Corpses,
Oh, I've got a copy of it. I've got a copy of it. But I do like Rob Zombie. I like Rob Zombie's work. I think he's done amazing, seminal work over the years. Just phenomenal. See, Constantine, that was a good one, Chantel. So
Yeah.
Lost Boys, Gavin.
Lost Boys. That's a
Crack
classic,
film.
The Lost Boys. But
Jacqueline says Turtle says The Omen. Yeah,
The Omen. Do you know what? The Omen, you can go. Oh, I'll tell you something about The Omen.
Oh,
They
Robert,
filmed.
everybody's missing The Exorcist. We got it in there after that. Sorry, Robert. Yeah.
So they filmed. You know the church in The Omen where the lightning, the storm starts, and the priest is running for sanctuary in the church, and the lightning hits the spire, and it comes down and it impales him. So that was filmed in, oh God, I had the name just a minute ago. It's in a park near Hammersmith. Right, I can't think of the name at the minute. It'll come to me later. And years after this had been filmed there, Andy's best mate, Little Rob, we'll call him Little Rob. He went to this park because that's where he grew up, near around there. And he said he was playing and he was tired, so he sat down on this park bench. And he started talking to this man who had his head down like this. He said he was talking to this man and this man wasn't listening to him. He said he kept talking to him and talking to him. And his mum had wondered where he'd wandered off to, found him talking to this man at the bench. And she was about to tell him off for talking to a stranger and then realised the man he'd been talking to for 20 minutes was dead.
Is that why we're asking him?
Yeah, no, he was dead.
She didn't tell him that till he was older, though, surely.
Well, then she realised where that bench was right near to the place where they filmed The Omen. And she was very religious, and she crossing herself. And oh God, aren't we gonna have to call the police, and we're gonna have to call the ambulance, and they're gonna want to talk to my son, and I'm gonna have to take you to church and get you cleansed.
What was it? House on the Haunted Hill as well, wasn't it?
House on Haunted Hill, yeah. That was, yeah. What's the Chantel said? Anyone seen Zombievers? Absolutely shite. My IQ literally dropped as I watched it. That's what
Do you know what, Chantel? If you want to watch a real shit horror film, I can fully recommend Cockneys versus Zombies.
Oh, it is. I love that. Absolutely brilliant.
Is that because you're a Cockney, Dan? Is it?
Cockneys versus Zombies is.
I'm not a Cockney, but I'm a Londoner.
What?
Big Martyr was
You know,
do you know
if you
one?
want to
I'll tell you
laugh,
one.
watch that.
There's one with Anthony, the Welsh guy. Yes, is it? No, Anthony or Anthony? Hopkins, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
Hopkins.
He done one called The Right.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah,
That's a cracking film, and that actually scared me.
did it?
Yeah.
Is that the fella
because
that plays Smee out of Hook? That's Anthony Hopkins, isn't it?
No,
I don't know who that is.
no,
But
he played Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
great actor. But he done that film, didn't he? And it was The Right, and it was terrifying. He was
How
screwed
he
up.
jumps from body to body, like.
Yeah. But there's two children. I won't, because if you want to watch it, but there's two children that are in the hole, and he gets a guy who comes along and he's a priest and he wants to see how to do exorcisms.
Yeah.
And the priest goes up to these two kids, and he can't work out why Anthony Hopkins is going to have nothing to do with them. So Anthony Hopkins said, "Don't go near them. Don't talk to them. Don't engage them. Just come over here. Get in here. Don't talk to them. Don't look at them. Don't do anything." But it's harrowing. I thought it was quite a harrowing film. It's quite a scary film, and that's probably the best one I've seen for quite a while.
Nick is going to join us in 10 minutes or so. So we're going to have a treat, guys, when we get Nick on board. You know he likes a horror film? Zombie beavers. So there must be...
That sounds like a sex film.
Yeah, that beavers that actually bite you.
Yeah, zombie beaver, like zombievers. Like,
actually, Dan, wasn't there a porn movie that had like women's beaver that had the big jaggedy jaws in it or something?
Oh, something like that, wasn't there? If there wasn't, why wasn't there? There needs to be one made.
She's going to beat 46 horses quick. Good luck with that. Oh, bless her. Angel Heart.
Angel Heart, yes. Yes.
I don't know that one.
That was the one that Liv's on about, wasn't it? I think.
Is that the one where the women had teeth down there? I think it might be.
But there's been some obviously shite ones over the years, but there's been some crackers, isn't there? There's been some corkers, but there's been some awful ones.
Now, you have to pick. Have a look to see if you can find it on YouTube, Chantel. I think it's called Teeth. Rob Fulton knows what it is.
Or
yeah, Rob knows what it is, yeah.
I know I've seen something like that before. Anyway, what I was going to say is Dan and Jay, right? So we all have to take it in turns. Tell me your favourite all-time oldie-woldy horror film. Then your favourite new horror film from, let's say, the 80s. And then your...
What's up, everyone?
Hi, Nick.
You're right.
Great to see you guys. Sorry it took a while for me to get online because I just got off work once you guys came on, and when you guys chatted, that's when I was waiting for my ride. So I was getting here as quick as I could.
We're glad that you joined us.
We are glad that you joined us.
So we're about to just say we're all going to take it in turns. You've got to say your favourite oldie-woldy, black and white type, old-time horror movie. Which one's your favourite? One from the 80s, 70s, 80s era, because that's when there was a stream of horror movies that came out. And then one from recent times.
Well, I could start off with the old horror films.
Go for it.
All-time favorites is, and this is one that I watch every Halloween season, is George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, okay.
It's such. Well, I'm just going to say it's such an awesome film because I actually had the opportunity of meeting George A. Romero almost 15 years ago at a horror film convention back when I was 16 years old. And I still remember I had to wait in line for over an hour to see him because the line had extended all the way to the convention just for him to appear. And he was an awesome guy. I mean, it's sad that, he passed away about 5 years ago, but it was truly an honor to meet him. So, and then for my film for the 70s or 80s, it would have to be, honestly, for the longest time, it used to be my favorite movie ever, which was, it's an Italian horror film, actually, that came out in the late 70s, is Dario Argento's Suspiria. You guys ever seen that one?
No.
Ooh, I think you guys would like that one. It's a good supernatural horror film, but the way how I could describe that movie, and director Dario Argento, another big horror pioneer, his movies that he made during that time was basically bad dreams. They're like nightmarish. It has the colors and stuff. It has that nightmarish look to it.
He said Italian horror, not horror.
Now you're looking at my search history, Chantel.
No, that's what's sometimes a little bit hard for me to say that word. Others think I'm saying otherwise, but I'm actually not.
That's just Chantel being Chantel.
And then my my favorite recent one was actually was about 10 years ago. It came out. Sinister.
Yes,
Yeah,
I've
you
seen
know
that.
that one, right?
I've seen
No.
that one.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
I actually saw that movie in the theater when it came out, and it was kind of weird when we went. It was just me and one other friend that went. I was like 19 years old that time, and the weirdest thing was, even though I was over 17, because it was, it's for 17 and over for an R-rated movie, that they wouldn't let us in. I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of odd. I'm over 17. I should be able to get in. And I guess we had to accompany some other people who were going to go see it. But when we got into the theater, there was barely anyone there. And it must have been about a week before Halloween. And I'll tell you right now, seeing that, as scary as you guys have probably seen it, if you guys have seen it in the theater, it
Makes
was
it worse.
mind-blowing. It was
Makes it worse. Yeah.
I was actually terrified. That was like really the last time I was really scared by a movie. I really wanted to get up and leave the theater because it was scaring me so much. But
You should have done what I do. I forced myself to go to sleep so I don't have to watch it.
well, if you remember the ending of that movie, I was actually frozen. I mean, I was so scared I couldn't even move. So even if I wanted to go to sleep, I couldn't.
What about you, Jay? What films that stick out for you?
Probably Candyman.
Yeah, it's good.
That was,
Good.
Candyman and House on the Haunted Hill, I think, because that was like.
Why do they?
Yeah.
Why have they made an effort, an impact on you, Jay?
It was every time I watch it, I still shit myself.
Do you?
You know, it still it still planes on my mind, if let's say, House on the Haunted Hill as well. It's just reminds me of obviously a house, very haunted, So yeah, it's just. But I haven't really got no old films because I'm only 84, baby. So I don't really know much, really. If I didn't like them, but now I do Paranormal. What that one out?
Yeah.
I was going to ask, which is it the original one you're talking about with House on Haunted Hill, or the remake that came out in the late 90s?
I think it was the late 90s one. I didn't even know they made a remake. I think it was that one.
Yeah, they made the original one from the 50s with Vincent Price, and then they remade it again in 1999.
Yeah, I think it was that's the only one I've watched in the 90s. But yeah, it's got to be them two, really, I think. But,
Cool. I liked, and it stuck. I've seen it a couple of times, and it stuck with me from the first time I saw it. And it was a film called Children of the Corn.
Yeah,
Nick! That's Nick.
Oh, dude.
It's Children of the Corn.
Children of the Corn. What an amazing film! What an amazing film! And it was. I love that. From the early stuff, there was a film that was. It was kind of horror, but it was a very, very weird film. Nick will probably know what it was. Very underrated. I think it's a cult classic now. And I think it was Bela Lugosi's last ever film. And he was looking after this house, and he was looking after they're adults, but they were like kids to him. He worked for their dad and stuff, and they were like lunatics. And everybody go to the house, and they'd end up murdering them. But he'd have to protect the kids at all costs. And I can't remember what it was, and it was his last film he ever made. But to watch that was quite harrowing. It wasn't ghosts or monsters, well, kind of monsters in the sense that they were like serial killers. But the girl used to do this thing where she used to go catching spider in my web, spider in my web. It was very overacted, but my God, it was a cracking film. And the one that was, I suppose it's quite modern. I cannot remember the name of it, but it was a Japanese horror film, subtitled. Because they do make some great horror films, the Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Koreans.
yeah, the Koreans do as well. This guy had murdered this girl. And because they got a massive problem with serial killers in Japan, haven't they? I think they've got more of it than anywhere.
Yeah.
And he'd murdered this girl, and he cut her body up, and he got rid of her, right? He lived in this flat, this apartment. And he went to he started getting a pain in his neck, and he just couldn't work out what was happening. So he went to the doctors, and the doctors and they took him and they weighed him, and then the doctor looked at him and looked at the scales and looked at him again, and it's like, you can't weigh this. This is
I know
what's
what
going
this
on.
is.
You've seen it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Shudder.
Shudder.
Yep.
Shudder. And then what he does, they get him into a room at the end, don't they? Like a psychiatric room. And then obviously you're seeing it. And the girl that he's murdered, he's got her spirit on his neck.
Yeah, they're taking pictures. Actually, I think she committed suicide, but either way, she was coming back for revenge.
She was coming back
And
for
it really
revenge on
does-
him.
It demonstrates that film that you can't, there's never an unlikely, if you're having some kind of problem, there's never really an unlikely chance that you'll see something with taking a photograph. That's what the entire idea was, to try to show how what you can capture of spirit energy in a picture.
Yeah, it was amazing. The fact that the weight was her weight on his shoulders, and the problem with his neck and his back was the weight he was carrying her energy around.
Unintentionally or unknowingly.
And it was terrifying. At the end, it was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. Just absolutely. Was it Japanese? Was it, Nick? Do you
What's
remember?
that?
Was it Japanese or was it Korean? Or?
They made an original one first, and then they did an American version, which is typical with a lot of these Japanese horror films. They always make, the Japanese version, and they make an American remake one.
Wreck was Japanese or Korean, wasn't it? Originally?
Actually, Wreck was Spain. It came out in Spain, yeah.
Spain.
But other films like Ju-on, The Grudge, The Ring, or Ringu, as it was called.
Yeah, The Ring. I remember that.
All those have been made into American films. Although, if you guys didn't know, when they made the remake of The Grudge, The Grudge was actually the first movie ever to have the same exact director to direct both versions of the story, the Japanese and the American version.
The American one.
So that was one of my mine on my list, but I'll tell you my list quickly. I love the Universal Frankenstein monster movies.
Yes.
And you will never ever beat them. They are so good. Like you could rewatch them. You could rewatch them today and still get enjoyment and the terror and the shock and all the rest of it. They're that good that people still remake versions of that film.
Yeah.
And I bring into Gene Wilder doing the Young Frankenstein. So bloody good film, if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
But the Frankenstein monster movies with
Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff is my all-time favourite old-time Universal movies. My favourite. Coming into the 70s. The 70s now. I mean, I have so many favourite films from the 70s. But I think the one that stuck with me the most and really did affect me mentally and physically for a long time is I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh God,
that
movie was so.
And my fear of dentists came from this. Is Driller Killer.
Yeah,
so these two films.
I like that movie, even though it's a video nasty. I love that movie.
Driller Killer.
So those movies affected me quite badly, and I still carry the effects into I'm in my 50s now, and I still have a fear of going to the dentist and other things because of these movies. Seriously, because of these movies, and I bring it to today, right? So I have two movies for today. One is Human Centipede because it is so sick. It's brilliant.
I can't watch it.
Yeah, it is.
I can't watch that film. I just can't watch it.
I love it. Whoever did come up with that concept for that movie, they must have a sick and warped mind.
You know what? I spoke with someone who said he saw that movie years ago, and apparently to him, this was the least expected answer I was going to get I got from him. He's like, "Oh, that movie made me hungry." Like, wait,
really?
What?
And the other movie was Ju-on. Anything with Ju-on in it, because the Ring and the Grudge and all the Japanese movies about, if you watch them, Ju-on, there's so many films about Ju-on, but I prefer the Japanese versions because they don't hold back.
I've heard from a lot of people saying, and I truly do. I mean, I truly agree with this, which is that I think right now, really, the only people who are making like real horror movies are the Asian horror films, the
Yeah.
Japanese. I mean, they are just
Yeah.
so unbelievably terrifying. And
Yeah.
I got to point out with the movie Ringu, because some people don't seem to realize this, but Ringu was actually created by the same company that did the Godzilla series.
Yeah.
So it's like when they stopped making Godzilla films, like in the mid 90s, you know, they decided to focus on other projects because Toho Company Limited was taking a what was originally supposed to be a 10-year break before that terrible American version came out. And but while they were on break, a year before they started getting back into the Godzilla series, they made this film called Ringu, which was certainly a much different direction to what they've done in previous, movies they've done. And my opinion, that was scary. It's a great film.
Do you think that the body that watches and puts the censors on these horror films, like, people are too scared to push boundaries now because of being banned? Do you think that that's why they've softened down over the years, especially Western?
I think in a way, yes, because like when you brought up a lot of video nasties, I mean, it's like there's still films to this day, like, not only just for the UK, but even for us and other countries where they will still not allow these films to be released uncut because of the, not only just what's horrific in these scenes, but just the reactions people would get from it. I mean, another film that's considered a video nasty came out now 50 years ago in the early 70s was Last House on the Left.
Left, yes.
Last House on the Left.
That was,
yeah.
I saw that one when I was 15. I kind of regret it, although they did cut out some scenes because this was back like when YouTube used to show movies, but they were only 10 minutes videos each, so you had to watch part one. They cut out like the worst scenes, but they left all the torture and murder scenes in it, which still made it just as vicious.
And yet they still send us the Kardashians on the channel to watch. Oh my god!
I don't get it.
Silence of the Lamb, was that in the 80s, wasn't it? Silence of the
early
Lamb?
90s.
Early 90s.
Or 91. I think it was 1991.
Okay.
Oh, Anthony Lewis, The Monster Squad. That was good, that one.
Oh, God, Hostel. That was the first one. I could not watch that whole thing.
Never seen it. Never.
Right.
Don't. It was nasty.
Can I just say, right, I'm going to tell you a secret, and I'm not ashamed. I used to model for a skin-to company, let's say. Okay, so nothing seedy, nothing bad. It was all done in good taste and no one touched me. But what I saw going to these parties, if you have money, it will buy you anything. I have seen people being sewn up. I have seen people being sliced and diced while they're alive. And some real sick stuff, right? So when I watched that film, Hostel, I thought, oh my God, how close. In fact, I believe this to be a true story.
It is.
Not in a general sense. In a general sense, it is a true story. But they've made this film and they've made it so gory. And I sat and watched it and I thought, right, the film is okay, but it's what's behind that film that they're telling you. You've got enough money, you can do what the hell you like, and it's true.
It is because that film, I mean, it's not an easy movie to watch at all. I mean, yes, there are bits and pieces of humor at times, but it's a really difficult. And Eli Roth, the director, he said the original story from that movie actually came from a conversation he had with a website director, and they were talking about horrible, disturbing things they've seen on the internet. And he told them about a site that if you go to Thailand and for $10,000 walk into a room and shoot somebody in the head. So that's where the idea of Hostel came from. And, Eli Roth had also said, because like the torture scenes and stuff, it was not fun for any of the crew because he said he remembered he was the only one at the monitor who could watch. You usually have the script supervisor, makeup effect person, all those kind of people. It was just empty. It was just him standing there because people were so upset. Yeah. And a lot of crew members later told them that they had nightmares after shooting those scenes, and that's never happened to him before.
Yeah, because there's like kids involved in it as well, isn't
They're
there?
like
And
they're like college kids, like in their 20s, and it's a really difficult film to watch. It really was the first film that I almost vomited. I'm thinking, you know what, this is too much for me. Enough is enough, and I have not seen the rest of that movie since. I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, David Cronenberg's The Fly, Jacqueline Turtle said yes.
The Fly, yeah.
The
oh,
Fly.
The Fly, yes.
David Cronenberg's the remake of The Fly. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good film.
And the original as well was made, was it back in the 50s or 60s, wasn't it? The black and white one.
Black and white one,
it was,
yeah.
No, it was in color in 1958, which was also another film with Vincent Price in it. But unlike other movies, he wasn't really the main character. He was more of a secondary character, unlike most films. And they said it contained what was considered one of the scariest movie scenes ever near the end. Although it was revealed when they did the help me scenes, Vincent Price, if you look carefully, he's actually trying to keep his mouth shut when because I think at the time it was actually considered very funny. But when they show that up on theaters, it just like, whoa, that scared the hell out of me. It's strange how some of the funniest things can become one of the scariest
scenes, most terrifying things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Brilliant. There was one I remember, I think it was called, I'm not sure if it was called Jack Frost or not. It was Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum, I think it was. Jeff Goldblum, was it?
Jeff Goldblum.
He did one where he was murdering people, burying them around his house. He wasn't hiding it or anything. And the police turned up. Now, bear in mind, I haven't seen this film for years, so my memory's probably very sketchy. But it did make me, it kind of put a bit of shiver down my spine. And the police arrested him. And he said, you can't arrest me. You can't hold me. You can't do it. I'm the devil. And they're like, what? I'm the devil. He went, you can't, there's no way you can hold me. I can do what I want. And they stuck him in a cell. And then they went to get him out and he'd gone. Just vanished.
That sounds really familiar. I'm trying to think of what that movie is.
It probably wasn't one of these, films that he'd be proud of. Well, I don't know, though, because I thought it was quite a good film. But it's years ago. I'm sure he was called Jack Frost. It was about a serial killer.
Doesn't he turn into a
snowman?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Jack Frost. Okay, to be confused, to avoid confusion, because there are two movies by the name of Jack Frost. You had the slasher one that came out in '96, and you had that family-friendly Christmas one. So I always have to say Jack Frost horror so I can avoid, because they both came out around the same time, and it's hilarious how bad that movie is.
They did over here. There's the cinema up near us, and they put on Flash Gordon for the kids at Christmas. They got the wrong film. They put on Flesh Gordon. So all these kids are in there. All these kids are in there up where I live, and they're all coming out the fucking cinema. Pardon my French. Traumatized. What's going on here? And it was Flesh Gordon, not Flash Gordon. It was the sex film.
Oh my God.
Wrong movie.
Wrong movie.
That movie that you described, though, Dan, it sounds to me a lot like 10 Ridlington Place.
It was, but the added thing was he couldn't give a monkey's, Jeff Goldblum. Didn't care about doing it in daylight, whistling while he's digging graves around his house. And it's like, no, you can't hold me because I'm I'm an evil incarnate. And it's like, yeah, okay, like this. And then they put him in and go to get him out, and he's gone. It's like, oh shit.
It's funny how that movie too. It did have a notorious star. It was her debut, and that was actress Shannon Elizabeth. And it's funny how some of the worst movies out there is the debut of someone who becomes like one of the biggest names in film industry, because she was like in early 20s when she did this film, and no one knew who she was at that time. So I don't think when it came out, it was 1997 actually it came out. But I don't think they didn't really think much of her. And then all of a sudden she's all like in all these different huge movies throughout the late 90s and early 2000s and 10s.
And then, of course, you had Invasion of the Body Snatchers and stuff like that, didn't you?
I was going to say, I wish they'd remake some of these old ones, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, the swamp monster, and all that. They've not even touched them again.
No, I know.
And they're the ones that
they're iconic, aren't they?
Yeah.
One of those movies I can think of that is yet to have seen a remake, and this has been directed by director William Castle, who back in the 50s and 60s was known for his gimmicks that he made, which some of his movies, one of them was House on Haunted Hill. So he had two movies with Vincent Price on it. But the one movie that still has been remade is Mr. Sardonicus, which came out in the early 60s. You guys remember that one?
I
No.
remember
Remember
that.
that one?
It was with the guy who had that huge grin on his face. It was based on the condition sardonic smile, but it's like a horrifying grin. And it was when it did have a gimmick that followed for the film, because again it was a William Castle film. Where the gimmick that they had was back when it came out in 1961, each theater patron would be given a glow in the dark thumb, like a punishment pole, because near the end William Castle will show up on camera and gives the audience the decision of whether Mr. Sardonicus should be punished or if he should be spared. And according to what all theaters said, everyone chose the punishment pole.
Yeah.
They said supposedly the merciful scene was filmed, but
Nobody watched it.
Well, there's no evidence that it was even filmed. It's really Castle claimed in his autobiography that it was filmed, but we haven't. Although, in addition to the punishment pole, was if it was at a drive-in, people had to haunt their cars then. Haunt their
really?
cars to get the answer. But apparently, nobody chose mercy for him.
Oh.
We had one
Do you know
made
what?
over here in the 60s. Do you remember it, Viv? It was called The Village of the Damned.
Yes.
Oh my
The
god,
blonde.
that is
Not far from where I live. It was made.
I'll tell you right now, that is one of my dad's all-time favorite movies. He
Creepy
loves that
movie.
movie, along with its unrelated sequel, Children of the Damned.
Children of the Damned. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah. Village of the Damned. It literally 20 minutes away from where I live. It was filmed. 25 minutes.
Really?
Is that based on
great.
a true story about a village somewhere that's supposed to be?
No,
it had the plague.
No.
It's a cheesy horror film, but at the same time, though, especially with the unrelated sequel, Children of the Damned, that was actually revolving around 6 kids of different ethnicities, countries. The only true part is that it's very interesting that they made a film like that, which was still 1964, which was still during the height of the Cold War.
Yeah.
So there was some kind of partial truth, but the actual story, it's completely fictional.
Great film, though. Great movie.
That is.
Yeah. That's the type of movie
I think we should all get together and write a horror movie of our own.
You know,
Come
I
up with
already
the
have
script.
before. I've done it a
Come
few times.
But I will warn you, it will never get made because I am quite sick.
Well, I've actually made a documentary in the past, which I need to get back to trying to re-release, but it's my directional debut, believe it or not.
Wow.
You've got to get it out there then.
I
You
know.
have
Well,
to.
I have. The film was shown once theatrically over here in Chicago, but because there's been so much going on. This was almost 5 years ago. I've had so much that I really haven't had the time to get back to it. But I am hoping next year that I'll have more time to, because my film that I made, some people may find this hard to believe, but it's a 3.5-hour film. But
Wow.
after we showed it, there was like a lot of unnecessary footage that to me was no longer necessary to keep. And a lot of the people that participated in it, I've lost contact with the majority of them. So I'm just only thinking about just cutting down to the people I still stay in contact with and what's the most important interview footage. The film I made is called 25 Scariest Movie Moments. And it's actually a fan-made sequel to a number of horror film countdowns that have been coming out now in over the last 20 years. And of course, you're not going to see movies like Halloween or Night of the Living Dead, those kind of films, because those movies had already been taken. So this is a list of movies that didn't quite make it to all these lists, or movies that have recently came out in the last few years. And this film actually took me 5 years to make. It was originally meant to be a mini series, but again, now we're just considering about cutting it down to an 1.5-hour film.
Yeah.
That'd
be good.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see that.
My trailer is still up on YouTube, so the trailer's still up.
I will have to have a look.
Look for that. Definitely. Definitely.
And
Plus, you've got Nightmare Soup on there as well. So
yeah, it's the same channel with Nightmare Soup. So it's just
okay.
Filmmaking is a lot of fun, but at the same time, I mean, it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And when you check out the trailer, you'll notice it actually. See, originally when I was making this film, I was originally just going to feature like it was going to be like a kind of like high school, college age film because at that time I was in my late teens, early 20s when I made it. So originally it was supposed to just feature high school and college students, but at the last minute before I started shooting, I decided to add older people into the film too because you have people who grew up, remember seeing those films coming out, and then you just got more people who have, more knowledge and information. So it became practically a film for not necessarily all ages, but it's kind of like PG-13. I said only kids 13 and over can see it because it was still, graphic because I was showing scenes from different movies.
Oh, Anthony Lewis says werewolf movies.
Movies.
I'm going to tell you a useless bit of information. We lived quite close to Shepperton Studios, and we had friends that lived in Shepperton, and one day this guy decided to get a dog, and he decided to give a home to an ex-police dog. So he had this German Shepherd, long-haired, beautiful dog, really lovely temperament, not a problem. He said to his wife, I'm just going to go and take the dog out for a walk. Yeah, don't be long. He was gone for hours. He was walking past Shepperton Studios, and there was a long queue of people with dogs. So he thought, oh, what's going on here then? And he joined the back of the queue. Didn't know what was going on, chatting to people. Before you know it, he's at the front of the queue. And this queue was for auditions for dogs for an up-and-coming movie. So he said, these guys said to him, oh, what's your dog like? Is it trained? He goes, oh, yeah, ex-police dog, yeah, it's fine. What do you want it to do? Do you think your dog would jump through a plate of sugar glass? He said, yeah, no problem, my dog would do that. So on the first commands, they got this thing and got him to jump through hoops and things. He said, yeah, what's he like? Because it's very expensive to do. He said, yeah, my dog will do that in one take. So he got the job. He went back. I mean, his wife had to go at him for taking too long. He said, I've been speaking to these guys and they want to put the dog in a movie. She goes, I hope they're paying you well. He says, oh, it'll be a bit of fun. It'll be something and nothing. Anyway, he went back to the studios. They had the plate of sugar glass. The dog jumped through it. And that was it. He got paid. Thank you very much. Went home. Lovely. The film that the dog is in is Company of Wolves.
Oh.
And it's at the very end where the dog jumps through the window. Is his dog. So
wow.
we met a famous dog. It's just a German Shepherd, long-haired German Shepherd jumping.
Did he get good money for it? That's the thing. That's the point.
I think he said he got paid 200 quid for that.
Oh, that's all right.
He said I weren't there very long.
I just thought of another werewolf movie, and this one was made in the UK, so you guys might know what this one is. Are you guys familiar with the film? Came out over 20 years ago, Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've seen the other show I do on Tuesday nights with my best friend Don Elmy, that's one of his favorite werewolf movies.
It's a good film. It is a good film, Dog Soldiers. I haven't seen it for a while, but it's a good film.
Yeah, it's funny that you don't know where you're going to be, where somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, excuse me, do you mind if I give you my card? Or, just be on the lookout, because it can happen absolutely anywhere, seriously.
Jacqueline, another one, Jacqueline Turtle, John Carpenter's The Fog.
The Fog.
Ooh,
yeah.
I like that.
The original one, not the crappy remake.
Oh, no, the original one was
the original one is great.
Yeah. No, the modern one's awful, isn't it?
That remake, I was tired of it after an hour.
It was rubbish.
By it.
It was rubbish.
I must admit, some of the remakes are pretty good. Like, for example, I'll bring up Jack the Ripper and the From Hell films. The From Hell film I thought was quite good. Okay, it had Johnny Depp in it, so well, that's scary. But I thought they actually take it and make it into something pretty good.
Was that the one with Robbie Coltrane in it? It was his working for a sergeant, wasn't he?
I think so.
Robbie Coltrane.
I'll have to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Vivian, just before I forget, because I mentioned you were talking about Walking Dead earlier.
Yes.
I'm actually wearing right now a Walking Dead shirt. So,
where's my Daryl?
Well, it's just the walkers. So it's not the survivors. It's just
Do
those
you know,
zombies.
I have a friend on, I say a Facebook friend. He's not really a friend. It's a friend on Facebook who continually plays one of the zombies on Walking Dead. And he
Oh, really?
lives there out in Atlanta. I'm going to have to seek him out and actually talk, because now they've stopped filming. It's finished.
Is it Santiago? Is that who it is you're thinking of? Or because he's played on The Walking Dead and he's been at some of our Paracons. He's really, as far as I know, the only actor I've ever heard of that's easy to really, you can really just go up and chat with him without worry. Because he was he was kind of more of one of the background characters, so he wasn't really a huge character.
No, he was just literally, it would play this particular zombie this time, then it'd be another zombie next time, a melting zombie, and he's been in it for years, and he filmed the last scenes, the final forever, goodbye, and he's now I don't know, he's an unemployed actor now, but it'd be great to get him on to talk about
that. Would be waste back you got out of that for all them years.
I've actually met two of the actors from Walking Dead on 2 occasions. One was Stephen Ewan. I'm sure you guys remember him, right?
Yeah.
What was funny was when I actually met him, it was at a horror film convention in Chicago. This was only like when after only 2 or 3 seasons came out. It was 2011. So this was before the fans were going crazy over all the actors. So he was there. And there was no line for him. If it was years later, it would have been, but there was no line. You had to pay to get a picture, of course. But we still decided to go up. So we go up, and the guards stop us. They're like, no, you can't come here unless you pay. But then Stephen Ewan's like, no, bring him up. It's fine. And I got a free picture with them.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the other person I got to meet was child actor Chandler Riggs, who plays Carl in the show. And we actually had the opportunity to investigate with them.
Wow.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because we were having our Walker Stalker convention for Chicago.
Yeah.
And the Chicago Haunts writer Ursula Bielski, she somehow got a hold of them and told them that we were doing an investigation at Schurz High School. We were expecting a few of the cast members, but unfortunately, it was kind of expected though. A lot of them couldn't make it because they had to get ready for the convention the next day. But Chandler Riggs was able to show up. He was like 15 at the time, so he was only in for a few more seasons before he was done with the show before his death, of course. And the funny thing was, I was nervous when I saw him because I had to read the history for him and everyone else that was there. But the entire time, as far as I'm concerned, he had a great time with us. So from what I could say, from an experience of actually meeting some of the actors from the show, they were very nice guys. As tough as they look in the film, in the show, they're like some of the friendliest people you ever meet. They're awesome.
I think as well, like when you meet the actors, like The Walking Dead will be up there. It should reach the Hall of Fame or something because it's quite iconic for a zombie TV program, that series that went on for a long time, and they did it in good taste. They really did it in good taste.
It even continues the tradition for George A. Romero. Like, in order to kill him, you got to shoot him in the head and stuff. And believe it or not, before his death, George Romero was offered to direct an episode of the show. But his response was, I'm glad you guys are continuing on the tradition of how zombies are killed in my way. But, not only was his age, but he was just too busy. So he was unable to do an episode. So it's just awesome that they're able to continue his legacy.
Yeah. I do think, though, sometimes these film series need to know when to end it. And I give you like Hellraiser, for example.
Yeah.
I love Hellraiser. I met the actor. I met the man himself. I've met Pinhead.
That's awesome.
I've done all that. But Hellraiser 1, 2, 3, and 4 maybe. But then when it gets to Hellraiser 8, and then they're changing the actors, the same characters, but the actors have changed, and they're putting them in space, and it's getting ridiculous. It's like, really, come on.
Right? Yeah. The fourth one was probably the last good one, and it was also the last Hellraiser film they made for a theatrical release, because all the others were released direct to video afterwards. I mean, it was great for the longest time that they still had the actor who played them, But once they started changing things, it just basically fell apart.
I have the original book, Hellraiser. It's
yeah.
called the Hellbound Heart, and it's
Hellbound
about
Heart, yeah.
this thin. It's only a few pages thick.
Really?
Yeah, and from that they've made all these films. It's just ridiculous. It's like, come on,
That is
stop
insane.
now, stop now already.
I've never read it, but I have read a different Clive Barker story, which, ironically enough, it's a larger book, but is yet to be made into a film. It's actually more of a family-related film story, but it still is horror. It's a book that I read in middle school. It was called The Thief of Always. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. To make a long story short, it's about this boy who's basically an outcast. And he comes across something that's called the Holiday House, which supposedly has been standing for 1,000 years, owned by the mysterious Mr. Hood. And what's so fun about it at first is the reason why it's called the Holiday House is when you go inside the house, it's like in the late, it's like all the summers, just like the seasons go. Like in the evening, it's Halloween. The next morning, it's Christmas. It's like that. It's like almost every child's dream to, instead of waiting a whole year, you have all these great holidays. But the dark twist about it is once they're in this house, they really can't escape. But they find this lake in the back of the house in the woods with all these huge fishes. Like, you're not really sure, like, what's with all these huge fishes that they got here. But he somehow makes an escape along with another kid who also had joined. But he later had realized, like, when he went to go see his parents, he found his parents all right, but they were 50 years, like, older. So what happened was each day was an entire year that went by. And those fishes, because there was a girl that was part of this too, he also later sees her transform into one of these fish creatures. So it's prisoner. These fish are children who are prisoners. And the twist of you're thinking, well, where's Mr. Hood in all this? The twist for that story is because they're searching for him and wanting to know answers, not realizing that he's not in the house. He is the house.
It's the house.
So cool.
For the last,
that is cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
For the last 20, 25, 30 years, they've been trying to make a movie out of it, which at one point it almost even got offered to become a Disney horror film, but such ideas have never materialized. They're still trying to make it to this day. It's what I would consider one of the best Clive Barker horror stories that is yet to be made into a movie.
Oh, that sounds cool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That sounds very cool.
So what do you think, Dan, about horror films that are made into comedy horrors like Shaun of the Dead that Annette?
Yeah, I was just Annette and Anthony have come up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those. Jacqueline, she's on the ball tonight. It's Jacqueline Turtle because she's come up with Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, classic.
Classic, absolute
Classic.
classic.
I don't even know it.
Before your time, mate.
No, right.
It's about Satanists.
Yeah,
And
right.
It's a cracking film.
They use a woman, and the devil rapes her, if you like, and then you got the devil's baby in her belly.
Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
That's, actually, I have, believe it or not, hang on one second, got a copy of it right here. Oh wait, hang on, the green screen is not letting me show it.
Hold it under your chin so we can see it against your shirt.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Whoops.
There you go.
Yeah, I got it right here.
That is a great film.
Okay.
Great film. That's quite a harrowing film, actually.
It is. It's creepy because of two things. It's like, what would you do if you looked into the basket and saw your child for the first time and it's the devil? But here's the other thing that most people don't realize. This story, even though it's set in New York, it's actually based off a paranormal story here from Chicago.
Is it?
Yeah, because we have a place called Jane Addams Hull House, which is now part of the University of Chicago. And there was a story that supposedly there was a woman who lived there back in 1913, and she was pregnant, and she hung up a painting of the Virgin Mary up on the wall. Now, her husband, who I guess was like a Satanist or something, not exactly like what you see in the film, but he was like a Satanist, and he tore down the Virgin Mary painting, and he said that I would rather have the devil in this house than the Virgin Mary. So time goes on. His wife gives birth, But when she gives birth, instead of having a normal human, it was this
Oh,
ugly looking creature that had little horns, glowing red eyes, sharp teeth. It had scaly skin, a tail, and hooves. And it spoke right from the very start. It danced around, and it became known as the Devil Baby. And they first tried to take care of it, but to no use, because this creature is like impossible. And supposedly the husband later took the Devil Baby to Hull House, which was where Jane Addams was operating, is like kind of like a homeless shelter in those days. And they supposedly locked it up in the attic. And they say to this day, if you look up at the windows, supposedly you can see the face of this little Devil Baby still staring. But as crazy as
I bet it's cute. I bet it's cute.
I was going to say, it sounds a bit cute, doesn't it?
Well, it's funny. Even over 100, almost 110 years after that story came out, there were a lot of curiosity seekers that wanted to see if that story was true. And Jane Addams, on many occasions, told people it was not. Some people more speculated, more likely it could have most likely just have been a deformed child that they just put up in the attic so they could, keep them away from.
That's more like it, isn't it? Yeah.
But that story became so popular that it became the inspiration for Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
And they just made it's the same story, but they've done 3 changes. Instead of having a selfish husband and saying he would rather have the devil in the house, it was a cult. Instead of Chicago, it was set in New York. And finally, instead of being set in 1913, it was taking place at the then modern era in the late 60s.
Yeah,
great film.
Do you know what? It always bothers me. When I say bothers me, I get a bit off on edge if I'm watching a film that involves the clergy. So anything nun related, so haunted or possessed nuns, bothers me. And any possessed priests, that bothers me. Seriously, like The Exorcist, the third one with the priest. I found that more harrowing than the first film because it involved a priest.
Yeah.
That poor priest, like, leave him alone. Like, go pick on somebody else and let the priest come to the rescue. That would be great. But no, because it was the priest that... And to me, because in your mindset, it is so wrong from somebody of the clergy or a nun to get possessed. It just makes it... It's not gory. It's not anything like that. It's just frightening that you rely on these people to help you, and yet when they get into trouble, it's like, whoa, can't be doing that.
It's more like a psychological thriller, but it's still it's definitely a very.
It's not in that one, but it's in mine.
Not even the kinky nuns. No,
it's in my one.
It's a really smooth, very dark film, and in my opinion, it had some of the creepiest nurses that I've seen. But it also, I'm sure you know this all too well, Vivian, but it also has one of the all-time greatest scares in any movie ever. I mean, that moment with the music, and that just freaked you out. And I even spoke to people who said they saw it during the summer of 1990. The whole audience was screaming, and it's very rare that you see that in theaters now.
What, on The Exorcist?
On Exorcist 3, it had one of the that hallway scene where it was like far out.
Oh yeah, when she goes like big choppers. Yeah,
that scared the hell out of me because someone sent me that scene, and it's been several years since I've watched it, so I kind of forgotten that scene. So they said, you got to watch this. This is terrifying. So I put it up on, I had my HDMI, my laptop. I put it on my TV, and the whole, for the first 2 minutes, nothing is going on. I'm like, this is supposed to be scary. Like, what the hell? And it's like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm falling asleep, of course. So I fall asleep. After a minute or two, that's when the music came, and I almost screamed. I'm like, okay, I forgot about that scene. It's terrifying.
Do you not think it's wrong, Dan, to involve priests being possessed and nuns? And
I think the ethos is that they're trying to. This is good trying to overcome evil, but evil's trying to overcome good as well. So it's that battle between good and evil. Yeah. And it's like they say that the demons are only going to come after you if you're of pure mind, heart, and soul, because they're not going to bother about anybody else because they've already committed themselves. So they're going to go after people that are pure at heart. So that's why they go after, not that a lot of priests, as we know now, a lot of them aren't that pure at heart, but you know what I mean? A lot of the priests and nuns, they go after people that are Christian or try and reconvert them. But yeah, I think it's interesting, the sort of the dynamic between the two.
You know, the nuns with the great big black habits. Do you remember them? The old-fashioned big.
God, yeah.
They're frightening. Anyway, you'd never ever cross a nun because chances are she'd get a whip and beat you with it because you looked at her wrong or something. But to see at the cinema, and they put that famous picture, I can't remember the name of the film now, In the Name of the Father, the priest, the nun with her habit on, she had a blue habit on, and a very wrinkly face where she'd been possessed. Is it called In the Name of the Father, that film that came out?
Oh, that's did it come out a couple years ago? I think I might know what that. I think that was well, I know it wasn't a film that didn't get a lot of great reviews. I think it was The Devil Within. I think
The Devil Within. That's the one.
Eyes are milky white. Yep, that's the one.
See, my family, a lot of my family went to sort of, because we're Catholics, or I'm not, but they sort of born and brought up a Catholic, but they were brought up by nuns, and my dad was brought up by something called the Christian Brothers, which were like priests, and this was that was back in the 30s and 40s, and they were, I think my uncle, who was brought up by nuns, they did more damage to him than anything else. You know, they just, like the fear of God, they beat the fear of God into these kids, and my dad was also then brought up by what they call the Jesuit order. Yeah. And the Jesuit order are particularly...
They're strict.
Nasty. Yeah, not particularly nice. And they were brought up by them. And some of the stories, even my brothers have told me about, being brought up by priests and nuns. And one of them had it was like a ring of office. And she'd walk around and she would actually punch the kids down the head with this ring on. If they weren't doing what she wanted them to do. So it was really regimented. It was really nasty environment.
Yeah.
But it makes you, but when you see a nun on a poster and she's possessed and she's got these piercing blue eyes, which are obviously not hers, and you walk past the cinema and you're seeing that, and it automatically gives you that, ooh. So I had to go and see the film. So my son, because I wouldn't go on my own, and my husband didn't want. So my son said, come on, it's Mother's Day. What do you want to do? I'll take you out for a treat, thinking that he's going to take me for a meal. I said, take me to see this film. I want to see what it's about. I said, but I'm going to hold onto your hand. And did I hold onto his hand like that? He's like, Mum, get off me. You're showing me up, But it's because it's nuns. That freaky.
As crazy as it is, it's just strange. Like when you see some movies, like the people, like you're hoping to fight for protection, hope to protect you against evil forces, turn out to be the bad guys, like it is with with movie like Devil Within or Exorcist 3. I mean, and even that scene I just mentioned to you, it had like a white cloaked, almost like
that's it, yeah.
Nun. And it really, I mean, it's not even just that made that scene so scary. It's really one of the scenes that you kind of have to check the mirror afterwards to see if your hair has gone white, because it's so frightening when you see it. But it's still crazy to think. And I'll even say this on a further note, because some people don't know this. With that movie, Exorcist 3, it's not even just the story about it, but that also became serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's favorite movie. He would actually watch them. Yeah, he would actually watch that movie before he went on his killing spree to set him in the mood. And he even actually went as far as to getting those decorative contact lenses, like how there's those Halloween style ones. He would actually get like yellow-eyed contact lenses to make it look like he was possessed in the film. I mean, he got that from a combination of that movie and the Emperor from Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. He was trying to almost live that fantasy, if you will.
I wonder if they'll make the Jeffrey Dahmer story into a horror film, because that's
they did. They did. They did about 20 years ago, but it was more focusing on not necessarily his childhood, but it was more about. See, I was expecting it was going to be like a slasher film, but it was more about
cannibals.
Well, not even just that. It didn't even really show that either. It was more about when he started getting into it, and then kind of focusing on his attempted latest victim, but it didn't really show too much of the murders. But I think they're trying to make another one, but it's the only one so far that they've made involving Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, I've seen Anthony talking about his life story.
Yeah.
I saw that on Netflix, and I must admit, and this is me with my sick mind again. Out of all the serial killers, he is my favourite. And you know why he's my favourite?
Sick
Because
and twisted.
no, it's not that. It's because he knew he was doing wrong. He
Yeah.
didn't blame it on being mental or a little bit retarded or whatever. He said, I knew it was wrong, but I wanted to do it.
Mhm.
And then when I did it, I wanted to do it again. And then I wanted to eat somebody because I
He never
wanted
even
to.
blamed
And it
his
was like, no,
Yeah, he
and
never even, I was gonna say he never even blamed his parents, because
no.
there's that rare interview that he had before he was murdered and he was killed in prison. And he said in an interview saying, you know, I'm getting all these messages from people saying that, well, it's because my parents raised me terribly. It was because I'm gay or anything. Other than that, they probably didn't approve of his homosexuality.
Yeah.
For the most part, he said, no, I'm not like all these other killers out there. I wasn't abused. I wasn't neglected. My parents may have not approved of my sexuality, but they still raised me right. So
Yeah.
if anything, do not blame on them.
Yeah.
It's all on me. I was the one
Yeah.
who did this. It's on
Yeah.
me. So he even
And that's-
claimed responsibility.
That's what I liked about him, because he knew he was doing wrong, did it anyway. That bit is wrong. But the fact that he took full responsibility, top bloke.
You know, the prison he was killed at, it's actually just an hour away from us, because we're only an hour away from the Illinois-Wisconsin border. And just beyond, I would say, actually, maybe about half hour in, so hour and a half, is the prison that he was killed at. So we're only an hour and a half away from where he was serving his sentence before he was
Yeah.
killed in prison.
Dan, our horror film that we're going to be making, that we're writing about, is going to be in a prison.
I want to make one about. You remember? Do you remember? I'm thinking of that. What you call it? The one about the Monty Python, the Beast, and you got to slay the beast. It's a rabbit. Is that one? Have you seen it? It's a rabbit. Good evening, Trishoff.
Hello, and hello, Mr. Seedon. I'm going to be writing a book about.
We're only 2 states away.
Oh, there
But
you go.
Like which states? Because there's a few states that are 2 states away from Wisconsin, so I'm not sure.
Is the prison still working, Nick?
What's that?
Is the prison still working? Is it?
Yeah, it's still in operation. Oh, she's in Ohio. Okay. Yeah, the prison is still in operation, but it's not like one of those historic prisons. I think it opened up back in the I think it was like the late 70s. I think it had to have been early 80s. So it's not
fairly
like
modern then.
it's not like a
Fairly
historical prison. But a lot of times whenever we've had to go up there for like an investigation or whatever, that prison is usually on the way.
Yeah. See, like I'd have in my film, death by lethal injection, but that lethal injection will be just pure coffee. Shh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd go loopy first, turn into a coffee head, and then see what happens before they drop down dead. So that my film would be brilliant.
Horror movie ideas. All monsters try to give up their monster powers.
Yeah, they go cold turkey.
Oh, Trisha made a good one, Mansfield Prison, which I was just there a couple weeks ago, Trisha. I went on my first investigation there.
I want to do an American prison, Dan. We
Yeah,
should
so
do
do
that.
I.
Shall we
You
go
guys
over?
come out. I'll
That'd
take
be
you
cool.
out. We got
That'd
our
be
own
cool.
prison here too in Chicago. We got Joliet Prison.
Yeah, that's meant to be quite haunted, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
I was one of the very first investigators to ever actually go to Joliet, and Vivian, because I know we both have a dislike to him. Zach Bagans claims he was the first. No, I was the first one there. I was there 3 years before he showed up there. So I have the true credit. It's an incredible prison. It's definitely very active. So I'd highly recommend Joliet is one of those.
Sure, we should go, Dan. We could do
Yeah, it's only a flight. It's only a flight, isn't it? Jump on a plane and we're there.
yeah, but we
Yeah.
could do an investigation at a prison and then go squatching.
Yeah, I'm up for that. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go squatching, looking for the skunk ape or the
My-
Essex one. Or the
I
Essex
want to do I want to do the States, but I want to do like somebody's private home.
Yeah.
That's what I'd love to do. Somebody's
Nick-
just an ordinary person's private home.
Nick, is your house not haunted because of what you do? And
Surprisingly, no, because I mean, our house is kind of is now kind of well, nowadays considered kind of a historic structure because it was built back in the late 60s, so it's well over 50 years old. But before this house was built, there was nothing really that existed at the time. Although we did have an investigator who claimed, because we also have a swimming pool in our backyard, and he had, and on one of his visits, we were having a summer party, but he had supposedly said he saw someone in the pool, like a body almost. Sorry, I just dropped something. But I thought, well, that's odd because the pool itself. I mean, yeah, the house was built in the 60s, but the pool itself wasn't built until about 20 years later in the late 80s. So it didn't really make a lot of sense because my parents had purchased it right around the same time, just a few years before my siblings and I were born. Because my parents, they got married in 1988. They bought the house in the following year, 1989. And when they bought it, it was kind of abandoned, but really nobody was really taking care of it. And, some people think that's usually the typical start of a haunting, but, we did check the records, see the previous, people like residents who lived there. And as far as we know, to understand, there was only like maybe one or two other people that actually lived in the house. And we checked the neighborhood around to see if there were any other deaths that occurred. And as far as we know, nothing really happened. So it's nothing really happened as far as death goes, but we've never had any activity here at the house.
I'm going to get Wayne, Seedon, Dan and Jay to investigate my house. I mean, Dan knows what goes on in my house.
Yeah.
But the only thing I'd worry about, because I know these guys, they'll be like going in my drawers. Oh, look, this is where she keeps her knickers. I'd be worried about that.
You hear me going, we've had to turn this off.
So that's what worries me about getting these jokers in my house. No, they'll be going through my pants, like, look at these big cruddies she's wearing, look at the state of these, and let's check what she's got under the bed. They won't even be looking for the ghosts.
I'll plant a blow up doll under there and just take photos. Look what she's got. Look what she's got.
I mean, Dan's experienced something in my house from outside, not what happens inside.
Yeah, I've heard the banging outside.
It's not just what goes on inside the house, it's what happens outside the house as well.
That garden's got stuff going on in it, definitely.
So, Nick, I'd be worried about letting these people in my house. And, I don't think they'd investigate. I mean, they'd be in the fridge. Oh, what's she got to eat now? Like, what can we pick up?
I'll do that anyway.
Read the
I wouldn't just have them there to investigate the house. I'd say, like, stay over, obviously, and I'd feed you and, look after you sort of thing. And especially with Wayne, like, I wouldn't know what Wayne was going to be doing. He'd be going, like, come on, where's my dinner? And, because I'd stay away from it to let them do what they need to do. I mean,
right.
I've got paranormal equipment here. I'm going to have to hide it away, just tidy up the house and hide things in drawers and lock the drawers, maybe.
That's kind of like how they do with the show Dead Files. Like, before they go in, they always take the pictures down. They always put everything away before Amy Allen will do her walk. I mean, that's kind of like, just hearing that, it just reminds me of those kind of walks that they do.
Yeah. Taking down anything that's pertinent, we'll remove that.
Yeah. I'm gonna look on eBay to see if they find lockable chest of drawers, lockable ones. I don't think they exist, do they?
I'll have a screwdriver in my hand. The drawer will be open. I'll go get it.
I like Anthony's comments. We can learn
bra drawer, just locked away, or I'll get them all in a bin bag and put them up in the loft so you're not seeing it.
I like Anthony's comment that he said we can learn from Ghostbusters movie on how to look for ghosts.
Yeah.
See, this is the side of ghost hunting that they don't show you. Is, you know, I mean, I don't personally do it, but I've been with people that have. That pull drawers open. Oh, what's in here? Or they'll open a wardrobe door.
Yeah.
Oh, what's in here? Oh, what shoes have they got? You know. So yeah, you never hear about it, but I just wouldn't trust these guys because they're
No, you couldn't.
Especially Dan.
Especially Jamie, he'd be the worst one. Shall I go live and just show her undies on?
Yeah, paranormal pants.
These are paranormal pants.
Paranormal pants.
Wayne just gets Spirit to open the drawers for
That's what
us.
exactly, Wayne. Stan
Yeah.
made it with screwdriver going, it was Ghost that did it. Ghost did it.
Trish Hoff had mentioned earlier about how she said Waverly Hills is on her bucket list.
Yes,
That's
well,
totally-
that'd be amazing to do Waverly
Yeah,
Hills.
but we're still in that whole situation right now with not
But people are still going in and still investigating.
so the whole deal is because we actually did have Ernie Denise. Well, we had Ernie Pack on the last show before Jeremy, took his break.
Yeah.
So they're still allowing the investigations to go through, but the problem is that the money that's being sent to the WHHS to build more money so they could take us down, including Charles and Tina Mattingly, the original owners of
But
Waverly.
are they not living there anymore then? They chucked them
They
out.
were thrown out, and they were given a lawsuit by the
Their
WHHS.
building, though, isn't it?
What's that?
That's their building, isn't it?
It is their building. So to make a long, I was going to say at some point you guys may want to have Ernie and Denise Pack on because they could tell you the story better than I can because it's a long story. But basically, as we all know, Charles and Tina Mattingly, they own the building because they bought it back in 2001. They've owned the building for 20 years, and all the work that's been done in that building, unlike
Some of them.
others, it was all. I mean, there were times they got some help, they got some construction help, for things that was just way too big for them to handle. But for the most part, it was all done really through the sweat of Charlie's hands.
Man, that's
So
awful.
they formed this group, which eventually became the WHHS, which, yes, they did handle the money and stuff like that. But they basically, to kind of put in simple perspective, because again, I can't remember the whole thing. I can only really remember certain details because it's such a long story. But the WHHS basically came in and said, we're taking this building over. We're throwing you guys out.
God.
So
Why?
why don't we all get a group together, go
Oh.
there, and do exactly the same to them, and
Oh,
chuck
we
them
already
out?
have. We actually already have because Ernie and Denise, they did create a website, which is, if you guys want to check it out, it's savewaverlyhills.com.
Yeah.
I'm telling people
It's
to do
very
not go-
important.
Yeah, do not go on the original site because that's the WHHS's website, and they if you give money to them, that's going to be building money for them to beat us. So we're asking everyone to go to savewaverlyhills.com. I know, of course, I'm not sure really I'm not much smart with math and stuff, but here in the United States, it's $20 for if you put in $20, you get a
About
T-shirt.
15 quid.
Save Waverly Hills glow in the dark T-shirt. I'm not sure how much that is for you guys out in the
15, about 15 quid.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
I'd gladly give. I don't want the shirt.
Yeah,
I'd gladly give the money.
they'll take any whether it's money or pounds, they'll take in anything, and you guys will get a shirt. The more money you put into this, the better chance we might be able to beat this. Because if
we've
that
got this
wasn't
thing.
enough, Charlie and Tina have been also been sent a lawsuit by the WHHS, and I've seen this lawsuit that they have, which is it is big. It's like the size of a Bible. This thing was
Wow.
it looked like something out of something you see in an office building or something like that. And it's just been it's been really stressful for both of them.
Who holds the deed on the building?
It's the WHHS who has it, but they're not the official owners. It's Charlie and Tina, although they are still allowing investigations for everyone else because it's very unlikely, but considering that we were talking about on a show like this, like this, our names, my name along with Jeremy and some of the others, again, it's unlikely, but our names could eventually be added to that lawsuit too. But you know what? We said even if they do try doing something like that, we're not afraid of them. you know, they
No.
want to
Yeah.
they want to continue fighting about this. You know, it's been a long battle. And in fact, on one of those occasions, because if you guys remember earlier this year, we did that 12-hour special of Save Waverly Hills.
Yeah.
Ernie brought in Charlie on. It was the first time. It was amazing because I've seen him on all the paranormal shows growing up, and now actually seeing him face to face. Of course, he was older, his hair was white, and you know, it was literally for an hour, none of us spoke. It was just him telling us the entire story of how he got the building and what's been going on. He couldn't really say too much, however, because this was still a court issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even he said at some point that he may have already spoken too much about it. So this is an ongoing case, but we're still fighting. And we already did promise, of course, because you guys aren't the only ones from the UK that know about it. We've gotten all around the world, including other investigators from the UK. And, you know, we already promised that if we win and beat this case, we already plan on basically having what I call a big Paranormal Nation party for us to celebrate. So
That'd be amazing.
yeah, for now, Ernie and Denise, they've been doing car shows. They've been doing they're doing a Halloween event real soon, which they did offer me to come down to Louisville, Kentucky with them. But, you know, you guys know me with my transportation. It's kind of tough sometimes, even though Louisville's only, you know, 4.5, 5 hours away. So it's been an ongoing battle, but we're still fighting.
Right,
Yeah.
listen, guys, we're going to have to wrap the show up. We've got 3
Oh,
minutes
wow.
left.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry for taking over the show for you.
No, it's
been
great.
lovely.
It's been
Lovely. It was
great.
always a pleasure with you, Nick.
You can take over anytime you like.
Always a pleasure with you.
So tomorrow on Simply Spooky, Dan and I are going live from a haunted location. We are at the Village Church Farm in Skegness, and we will have the manager and one of the volunteers there with us, and we may be doing a ghost hunt. So tomorrow, join us at 8 o'clock on Simply Spooky. On Friday, we have the Frighteners. I don't know what's happening there, but we will be talking about all sorts of things and things that you don't want your children to hear, I should imagine. So that would be Friday night from 8 o'clock on Frighteners.
That'll be Lois on
And
there, won't she? Lois will be on there, won't she?
Lois will be back on there. And we have next Tuesday, back on Simply Spooky, will be Paul Rook with Mysterious Worlds is his show that he brings to us. And on Saturdays, on the 1st and 3rd Saturday of the month, he does Paranormal Insights. And in between, we have, starting in a couple of weeks, the fantastic, so proud to have her, Jenny Sullivan Sunashi.
Yes.
Will be bringing her show across to us as
She
well.
is awesome. You'll love her.
She's lovely.
She is,
She's lovely.
I
yeah.
love Penny. She's great.
She's really nice lady.
So that's what's coming up. And if Nick wants to bring a show over to Simply Spooky and stream there too, you're more than welcome.
Oh, we're
we
thinking
will-
about
we'll-
it, actually.
We'll have a talk.
And Trish Up, I want to answer her question because she's asking me if she can add me. Yeah.
I was
Yes,
just about to
you can.
point that out. Yeah,
Yeah, you can add me. That's fine.
So we are going to end it there.
Thanks,
Nick, stay
everyone.
where you are. Jay, stay where you are.
I'm going to make a
Um,
move in a minute.
Everyone, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate everything that you've contributed to the talk tonight, and we will see you next week.